If the person is worth his salt, you will be able to tell the difference a mile away. If you are used to darkness and someone turns on a light, you will know this is the light. You don't have any question that this is the light, because it's going to destroy the darkness. If that man is good, he's going to destroy all the darkness that you experienced.
We're back again with Marriage Matters, and we're following up in this segment on the practicality of preparation, specifically towards the female and the woman. I am Shane, and the other end is Mr. Arthur. Mr. Arthur, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Having a very nice day here, a nice afternoon, I should say, and looking forward.
Right. So I'll allow you, sir, to pick it up. Let's just get right into it. What's the next practical thing you have when it comes to preparation for dating and marriage and that thing, especially for the females? What do you have lined up next?
Yeah, I to begin off this week, I would like to start from a point that we mentioned last week, and that point is the point of disease. Huh? So there was another a little insert in there that I wanted to share in terms of this request. And when we talk about diseases, this is something that both sides should do. And but it is more something that is important for males to get done and to know. But the question here is, how do you stand medically? Are you medically fit? And when we say medically fit, we're meaning, do you have any sexually transmitted disease? Right. And if you're a virgin, then, well, that should not be a huge problem, unless, you're a virgin, but you're a drug addict and you use needles and share needles with others that may have diseases. So both of you would be required or can be asked to do this test. It's not a 50-50 value in my heart, but I won't give a value on it. I don't think that's important at this point. But when the female asks the male to do this test, that is for her own safety. And then she will know, well, what she's getting into, and she can make a choice. She might, for lack of a better word, love him so much that that's not a deal breaker. And that's fine if you choose that you want to get in a relationship knowing that that's the risk that you're taking, then that's fine. You can do that. You have that choice. But as an opportunity, it is good for her also to observe. When you ask this person to do that test, what is his response to you? Does he get angry at you? Does he stop talking to you for 10, 15, 20 days? So knowing his response when you make requests like these gives you a little taste of what the experience would be like inside a marriage. And so I wanted to include that in that part of the test. That the lady, when she asks a question like this, she looks, she observes, she sits quietly and observes the response. Okay, that is what I would like to add to that previous one.
So would you advise that would you advise for the female to make a search for diseases outside of the sexual realm? Do you think there are other things that she should look out for when it comes to the health aspect? I mean, there are some other things. That's one of, if you think that's something she should consider as well.
That's a solid question. The reason why the sexual diseases are of utmost importance is because these diseases can cause direct sexual effects. And meaning that you can actually contract this disease, and it's something that might be based on somebody else's promiscuity, and now you will have to take on the consequence of that that person's behavior. And of course, this is not the only way that you catch a disease, but that makes the sexual diseases, they get the higher priority here. There's also other diseases, for example, dysfunction, where maybe a male cannot function sexually because of some sickness. And I guess in some cases, maybe females. And this is good to know, because again, you have expectations going in. And so I would say it's a solid question, but it does not, the other diseases, they do not trump the sexual one in terms of the transmittability of it. Other diseases, like for example, somebody might have cancer.
So the other,
someone might have cancer or might have diabetes or some other disease that you might be willing to get in that together, because you can help, and you know, with cancer you might not have the person forever. You know, with diabetes you might have to agree to go on certain diet, and you might not eat certain things because you don't want to test or to tempt the person that has diabetes and can't eat it. But that's a different things. But it's I hand it to you. It's a very good question. I see another one coming up. But tell me.
No, it was more a comment just to sum it up, because the sexual ones are more a priority because the transmission rate is high. It's far more likely. But we're saying the other ones are more an issue of sharing in the afflictions of the partner in terms of what they will have to go through. And so that was really where my question was geared at, to help women think about that like you are saying, one may be willing to make a diet change, or already know that this person, I may not have them all the life, the quality of life will not be the same, or the quantity of life. But still, I think there are things for both the male and the female to think about. And so I do agree. I think that the sexual ones are higher because of the transmission rate is higher, right? It's more likely. And so I like that. Sure.
Yeah. And love is love. So it doesn't matter. The other day we took our dog to the dog trainer. We are learning. And similarly to dogs, you find, or at least we have been learning, that the dog is not the problem. We, as the authority, we do not understand how to, or attitude that we should have when we are speaking to the dog, the quiet command that we should exert. And so when we went there, and instead of teaching the dog, we are being taught. And it's the same thing in marriages. Many times men want to have their women go to a counselor, and the poor men are ignorant to the fact that they need the counselor, and that would change the whole relationship experience. Anyway, we went to the trainer, and the trainer had two dogs that were born they had some sickness, and they could barely walk. And this person took the dogs through months of therapy, and so now they are pups. They can walk a little bit, but they fall, and they look like they're drunk trying to walk. And we fell in love, And if her dog was not going to tear those pups up, because he did not like any of them, and if he was not going to tear them up, we would have had, a couple dogs in our house, And we know that they had a problem. We know that they need a special diet, that they need so much hours of therapy. But that was not a deal breaker for us. Okay? And in some cases, a sexually transmitted disease would not be a deal breaker for someone. But I'm just saying that you need to check. And if you don't want to check and you want to play Russian roulette with it, then that's also you have dominion, and the manufacturer has given you that. You can choose. So I have another point here, that this one is a very, 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 very tricky point. So I begin this point by saying, women, there's nowhere in the manufacturer's manual that tells you to love your husband. It is okay to love them. The same way, there's no in the manual that tells a man to respect his woman. But we respect our women. That is, you can do that. That is right. But it is not a command. And so nowhere tells you to love your husband. And so many females get sadly in relationships and even dating, and they fall in love. So we have a lot of females that are falling in love. And this is my next point. The point is actually a question. And it goes, how do you ignore your feelings? Okay? So my next point is, ignore your feelings. Women, you need to ignore your feelings. We know you live by feelings. We know how you feel takes up and makes up a big part of who you are. And yes, ignore them. When you fall in love, you are talking about feelings. Don't fall in love. This is not the time, especially dating. We are talking about you preparing. Especially dating is not the time to fall in love. You can love your boyfriend, you can love your husband, but that is not the requirement. Don't fall in love.
Right.
Instead,
right.
Love yourself. So if you ask, what is the fix for this sickness that females have? That they fall in love and get emotionally charged and emotionally senseless in relationships. And the answer is love yourself. Now, why would we say love yourself? Well, you see, the true meaning of love might differ depending on which love you're talking about. But this love that I'm talking about here is the one that is sacrifice, the one that is choosing, the one that is giving. And so you should learn to love yourself. Because if you love yourself, then you won't let people abuse yourself. But when you don't love yourself, then you accept all type of nonsense from people that don't deserve to have you. You see? Their standard is so low that they don't deserve you, mommy. You see? And so loving yourself means that you are willing to sacrifice. What are you sacrificing? Your feelings. So you get all butterflied up and you're shaking, and when you're around this person and, oh, I feel and I feel. Yeah, you see that feel? Yeah. Love yourself by sacrificing that. Put that on an altar. Kill it. Destroy it. Put it aside. Love yourself first. Don't go by feeling. And so many times women go by feeling. Oh, I like him, but I like him. Yes, he's doing that. Oh, but I like him. Put those feelings in a cage and lock them up.
Right.
It is not the time for feelings. You can't stop having them, but you should not be driven by them. If you are driving yourself by feelings, then you are not a stable person. Because feelings, as you said earlier, Shane, it's a chemicals. And today you have this chemical mix, and tomorrow there's another chemical mix. And if you go by feeling, you will find that actually later on in marriage, you might not feel good. You might feel hurt. You might feel that you're being left out. You might feel neglected. You might feel that you're being abused. And all because you ignored those red flags at the beginning. So my point is, love yourself.
Right. So, question. Is there a maybe it's a two-part question here. Is there a place where a woman, or let me ask it like this, are there certain feelings she may want to pay attention to um when it comes to in the dating process? Are there certain feelings connected to the flags? Because we talk a lot about the flags.
Yeah.
Are there certain feelings that she should pay attention to if the feelings are following a flag that you cautioned against, and then also with that another question with that, if you could think about the two of them, is let's say she had a previous heartbreak,
Yeah.
and maybe fear or being reluctant from that heartbreak has caused certain feelings to be on the high. Not necessarily feelings of love, but feelings of caution.
Yeah.
How would you advise her to proceed? So the first question, are there certain feelings she should pay attention to with the flags? And then the other one is, how do you advise somebody whose feelings are high in terms of the caution side?
When it comes to the first part of the question, I do appreciate that question. And it tends to bring balance to the thought of feelings. But I'm going to say this. The word feeling is what I have problem with. Because the feeling is the emotional part. And so that balance is not a balance for me. It is rather, we're talking about a deep inner heart, for lack of a better word, conviction that drives us. There are times when there's something that you feel deep inside your soul, but that is not a feeling where, ooh, I feel this, and ooh, I feel that. And that deep inner connection and that deep inner peace we use inside the manual, it talks about you being guided by the peace in your heart. That's from a different place, from a deeper place, and it's not a feeling. And so when I think of that, then of course you want to use that other sense, for lack of a better word, and you want to listen to that sense, because that does not come from emotion. That comes from a deep foundational structure that warns you and guides you against things. That comes from a place of principle, because we are talking about principle compared to emotion. And many people get into relationship based on emotion rather than principles. So a red flag is something that is based on a principle. And we ignore the red flag, and principles, you either, principles don't play. It's black and white. Principle won't give you the run. We as human give you a run. You run a stoplight. We'll, okay, traffic officer might be nice, unlike what they did to me when I was rushing one day and the light changed yellow while I was passing. So when it was red, I was probably in the middle of the intersection. And there were some young traffic officers, and they were more than happy. I could see the excitement in them in issuing me a nice ticket for the next baseball game. I took my ticket. I could have argued a bit, but I knew the light was green, and so I rushed, and when I was on the light, it was yellow, so I could see it turning green, red. And they could have given me a run. They could have said, okay, we'll let you this time, but you were hurrying. And I could tell they were more than excited to give me a ticket, and it would have made no sense for me to fight it. Or to try to reason with them. So I took my ticket, and they gave me the law. And this is what principle does. You don't get a run. When there's human involved, you might get a run, but it is not automatic. So we don't ignore red flags, which are principles, and go by our emotion, which might change tomorrow, and then hang our lives on that weak balance. It doesn't work that way. And the second question was, I forgot.
Yeah, so how do you advise a female, let's say, they didn't have a divorce, but maybe they had somebody they dated for a while, or they went
Yeah,
into a committed relationship for a while, and uh she suffered heartbreak, heartache, whatever the reason was, and
yeah,
that has left her very guarded, and now the feelings that is more dominant going forward are maybe feelings of fear and caution.
yeah.
How do you advise a female from there?
I love that question, and it has me feeling a little bit mischievous. So I would say to a lady, especially a lady who has been through different relationships, and we would say that I feel mischievous in saying you might be professional at knowing heartbreak. I see many women who they are just like professional at choosing bad men that are not good for them. I heard this lady on Facebook talking about her past relationships, and it's like, what is wrong with you that every man you choose, that you have this problem with understanding how to find a sensible man. And so we have women who are professionals at making bad decisions, and they are so good, they are mature in heartbreak, they understand heartbreak. So now you have been trained. The heartbreak actually trains you. You know exactly how a person that behaves this way, what that does to your heart, to that deep inner part. I'm not talking about emotions. I want to run away from emotions. Emotions are not stable. And if you want to build on emotions, then you will continue being a professional heartbreak magnet. Okay? I'm talking about that deep inner uh, system that warns you. It's like a system that puts up an alarm. And if you have
A
been
check
through that,
engine light.
a check engine light, thank you. That's a very, very good skill to have. Now you are actually trained in how to sift out a rascal. And so if you're around somebody and they bring back that same, lack of a better word, feeling that you had when you were in whatever relationship that was toxic or abusive or neglectful, and you have that same feeling, then it's time for you to listen. Not because it's a feeling of, oh, I love you, and that kind of lightweight, empty feeling. If that happens, then I would encourage you, mommy, to run. Now, if you have that experience and somebody comes along that is totally opposite, you will pick that up right away. You will know there is something different about this. I cannot explain it. And why? Men like to look at me and say, well, you see what happened? Well, because she was in a past relationship and they used to do her this, then she wants to think calm like that and she wants to bring that here. No, 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 sir. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She's a mirror. And when you break that mirror up into pieces, it will still reflect. It will actually give you 1,000 reflections of what you're putting in front of it. So if she's reflecting that back to you, sir, it is because you have a problem. She's just simply a reflection. She's showing back to you who you are. You see? And so I don't take that as an excuse as to, because the poor lady was battered before, maybe she's, I feel sorry. It hurt my heart. It hurts when I see relationships not working. And especially when when it's violent, and even if it's not violent, I just don't like when it doesn't work. And I want it to work. And when I look into it, and men will come with these excuses that they pass. No, I'm sorry. One of the things that made the women in my life trust me, the first time I was married, and now the second time, is from I met them, I laid my life before them as an open book. Please turn to page 32, subsection 3. This was a young lady that I had in the past. I had 10 children with her. You know, turn to page 5, subsection 3. I had a divorce. You know, or page 7. You know, I have to use Viagra. I can't function. You know, you don't have to wait until you marry for the person to find out things about you. They will love you as you are, or they will accept you, I should say, as you are. If it's a lady you're dealing with, and the man now will love the woman as she is. So you do that right away. Trust begins to build because you are not hiding anything. And I've carried that throughout my life. And so it is very rare for me not to have good relationships with women. And I'm not talking about nasty relationship or sexual relationship, which I have with only one woman. That's alive. Only one alive woman, one living woman. But I'm talking about clean relationships. I can get along with female leaders, female co-workers. It doesn't matter because there's an understanding of how to treat females. You see? So yes, I would say that please don't feel bad about that. Yes, you have been a magnet and know your experience that have drawn and attracted men that should be locked up in prison. Well, at least romantic prison, I should say, because we have good men out there that are criminals romantically. When you smell and when your senses, you see, you spoke about senses and it was very strong. It was a very strong comparison. Your hand when it feels pain, or your eyes when it sees, or your nose when it smells, it is not emotional. You know, you smell something, it tells you if something is burning, and you know, well, I have to go check that out. It's not emotional. Oh, I'm emotional. Oh, I get angry now because something smells like it's burning, so I'm upset. That's not what you do. That's a principle. Something smells like it's burning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I hope I answered both questions.
Yeah, no, good. I think I just want to sum up that question by saying what I want to kind of share back a little bit of what I heard in terms of you made a strong point of transparency, and I think transparency helps. Transparency tends to trust.
Yeah.
So many times one of the things that I find out is, and I my wife and I, we did it for a bit, and then we realized we could have gotten past it, but when we were dating. But one of the things I see is people in dating, getting to know somebody, we want to put the best of us out there,
Yeah.
and we wanna cover up or put away all the other parts that we feel will render us inadequate in the eyes of this person. And I think it's healthy. And I always counsel and encourage people who are dating or in a relationship, especially if they're wanting to get married. Listen, practice transparency from now.
Yep.
You don't need to pretend to be somebody or not, or something you're not. Be who you are, where you are. With wisdom and time, of course, because in marriage will expose things, and it's better that you expose yourself before you are exposed, the other way. So
Yep.
transparency tends to trust. And the last thing I want to say, I love how you walk practically to the second question in terms of even if you are a magnet, it doesn't mean that all is lost. So the saying would say, when life hands you lemons, you make lemon juice, right?
That's right. That's right.
In here we met meringue pie in Belize. So
Yep.
when life hands you lime, met meringue pie.
That's right.
And you don't have to, women, ladies, you don't have to be held hostage by previous heartbreaks.
Yeah.
Don't be held hostage by previous heartbreaks. But uh sit for a bit, learn, take those things and get tools and techniques out of it, so that so that you can move forward. And like you were saying, let it be a teacher to you on how to decipher and sift.
Right.
You don't have to be a hostage to your heartbreak.
Right. It's well said, well put. And I want to labor this point before I go on to the next my next point, which I think you might find interesting. I want to labor this as Mr. Shane, as you mentioned earlier, learn from it. That is the benefit from it. Women are too many times overburdened with things. They're overburdened with men's curse. They're overburdened with things. And so there are many things that we put on women that should not be on them. Things that if I give you a job and 2 people should have completed it because that's how hard it is. And one person walks off and that job is left with the person, and the person that walked off took the tools. So for example, in our marriage, the man has the tools for discipline. Many times, your dad just has to speak to you and you listen. And you know, if you get spanking from your daddy, it will hurt more than if mommy spanks you. But the daddy walks off with the tools that he has, and now your mommy is left to care for you by herself. And so we turn around and say, yeah, look at that lady's child. She doesn't even know how to take care of her child. And we do this misunderstanding that when a child becomes 12, 13 years old, they need daddy there. That's the time when they need a father in their lives. But so sadly, they have to grow up without a father. You see? And then we turn around and blame women for this. And so we blame them for too many things. So it's on that I want to say this. Learn from it, mommy. But it is not your fault. Learn from these. Let me clarify when I say it is not your fault. It is your fault for choosing wrong. But it is not, I want to clarify. It is not a bad thing then. Having that caution is not a bad thing. If you bought a car and the wheel always falls off, and you used to hear a noise before it falls off, and you go and you buy another car and you hear the same noise in the same place, then you are using common sense and wisdom to be cautious and to have that check before you buy it. That is just common sense. And so it is not a problem that you have, mommy, if now you have a super sense to sniff out rascals. And if you are there and a rascal comes around and wants to be with you, and your super sense tells you this is a rascal, don't feel bad and as if you're bringing in your old experiences. No. If the person is worth his salt, you will be able to tell the difference a mile away. If you are used to darkness and someone turns on a light, you will know this is the light. You don't have any question that this is the light, because it's going to destroy the darkness. If that man is good, he's going to destroy all the darkness that you experienced. You know, I'm tempted, but let me leave that part of this thing up so we can move on to the next point. I was going to speak about my first relationship. Maybe another time for that. Can I go to my next point?
Oh yeah, sure. Yes, definitely. Let's go.
Another place for a lady to prepare, another way for a woman to prepare herself for marriage and for a relationship is to be able to sniff out churchmen. Do not close your eyes to churchmen, because in the church there are a lot of men hiding behind a moral compass. A lot of times women get with men that are in the church and think that because they're in the church that they're an angel. And many men in the church, I don't want to describe them as devils, because I might get into trouble doing that. But a lot of men in the church, you can see they're wolves in sheep clothing. And you have to understand, it's like saying you're going to the hospital to look for a healthy person. Now, I'm not saying that the church is just a hospital, but you can't get in the hospital thinking you'll find a healthy person and walk out. The person might not have fully recovered and not have been in best of health. The hospital brings you back to health. And so many times women go into churches and say, oh, it's a church boy. So let me try to say that in English. You know, they say, oh, it's a church man and it's a church boy. So I'm safe. He won't cheat on me. He won't hit me. He won't curse me out. He won't. Mommy, let me wake you up. A lot of times the churchmen are worse than those who are not in the church. A lot of time the churchmen, and when I say churchmen, I'm talking from pastors coming down. A lot of time the pastors, they are pedophiles. And it's not, I'm not saying in any country, any particular country, I'm making a general statement. I'm not talking about any particular religion either. Many times the pastors are pedophiles. Many times the worship leaders are pedophiles. Many times the deacons are pedophiles. Many times the youth leader, they are what do you call, like predators to the youths. You know, many times I've seen it over and over and over. So you come into church and you close off that same deep heart peace because you're in a church now. And I want to take the time to do this, sir, because I always speak of it, and I'm sorry that it might not necessarily be in line with what we're speaking, but I just want to do this. If you look up in the manual, in the what they call the Old Testament, there's a word that is called servant. And that word servant, when you break it down and take the meaning of it, and you look at the Hebrew letters and what they mean, it actually means when the son leaves his perception at the door. Which a servant is somebody that leaves their brains at the door. And many people, when they walk into a church, leave their brains at the door. And because somebody is there shouting at the top of their lungs, it seems like they're correct with what they say. And not because you're shouting at the top of your lungs means you're correct with anything. You see? And so women go into the church as a servant. And when I say servant, I not that anything is wrong with having a servant attitude. But I mean they go in the church and leave their brains at the door. And because it's a church man, we say, well, oh, we're good to go. And then you find this man is more promiscuous. You get married to him, and he's more promiscuous than somebody that is not even a church man. And he abuses you and neglects you. You see? So I want to say to you, be extra cautious. Oh, you are from church. Oh, you're a church man. Good, fine. Then you turn your notch. If you have a dial, turn it to 100%. Because this is time for you to be very or even extra cautious. Because the same way we expect policemen to keep the law, since they are enforcing it on us, you would expect a church person to practice what they preach. And we have pastors who are not practicing what they preach. Some pastors are worse than some people in prison. And again, I'm not talking about any particular denomination or any country, because this is not something that is specific to United States or Belize or Jamaica. What should be specific to you, mommy, is to have your little antenna and satellite that picks up these atrocities. Because when you say I do, then you have to live with a man that calls himself a pastor but has children all over the country for the people that he should have been counseling. You see? And this is a serious thing. I am trying to help women to understand. So you're a pastor, then you run in the opposite direction. Because too many women are hit hard against the side of their head and wake up inside a marriage thinking that they have a pastor or they have a church leader or something, to find out that they are not practicing at all what they preach. Not at all. So there's a warning. You might end up in a horrible life.
Yeah, I think a few segments ago I mentioned that I counseled a young lady one time to you know to look deeper than what you see on the stage, and I was speaking specifically to that when it comes to pastors, there's this so-called glory, I think, that people see when they see
Yeah,
somebody well dressed speaking from a mic to a huge crowd that's listening. um I could see where that could appear like a man is confident. It could appear attractive to somebody. But what I was saying to her was, remember that there's a life after that platform, or a life beyond that platform that you're gonna have to deal with. And um, whether we're talking about in the church with pastors, or if it's somebody who's in Senate or government with a high
yeah,
position, one thing I want to say to females is, remember that there's a person inside that position. Um,
yeah,
it's the position is there, which is great. It's an office. It's admirable. It has perks, if you want to say so. But remember, I want to caution women to remember there's a person inside that position
yeah,
who is uh as learned and as educated as they may be, still has frailties and falls short. And so,
yeah,
um, I mean, when it comes to the whole in church, I mean, I'll tell you, Mr. Artis, there are many times I speak to, or I talk with young people from the church, and
yeah,
young women, and there's a more than once you hear they say to me that, hey, I don't know where to look, because for lack of better words, all the guys in the church are like garbage.
oh my,
um yeah, like because they've been hurt. It's like, that guy was a worship leader, but he cheated on me. That guy's a pastor, but this happened, that happened. So, like, why should I even look in the church? I should just go outside. Because so I wanna take an opportunity to speak specifically to uh men in the church, or men who are professing Christianity, whether they're leading or not. Um, it's time for us to regain. It's time to I want to say reclaim and honor in these places,
yeah, yeah,
as men. And I have heard from the other side of the spectrum too. Some young men are like, you know, the girls in the church are not living up to the standard either. And so I just think, don't allow a position, or a don't allow an association with something to blind you. I think that's what maybe I could hear you saying. Uh,
yeah,
just because a person is associated with righteousness, or associated with something that should be righteous, means that they're righteous.
right, right.
Um, and so look beyond that, is what I hear you saying, which I think is very, very good advice.
Yeah, I,
Uh,
I am, I am. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I am intentionally hitting hard in this area because many times, as mentioned before, we leave the brain at the door because we hear church, then we leave our brains at the door. A lot
Mm,
of time, these guys are repeat offenders because they
mhm,
have the authority. They do these sexually unacceptable behavior, and these sexual, if you want to call it what it is, sins. And because of their positions, they stay in where they are without getting proper help and proper counseling. And they are repeat offenders, you see? And that's a thing where you have to be careful now, even leaving your children around. And don't say because it's church and you're no, no. Be as cautious as if you're not dealing with with so to speak the church. And I want to make a statement because you said that and then I try to move on to I have about two more points. So um you said that some men would say that the women in the church are not up to spec either. And a statement like that in my books now is a seal of disapproval on that man's part. Because if a man tells me that, if a man tells me his woman is not listening to him, that's a seal that he is not good. Because if you have been given the advantage over this person, that their desire will be for you, and you will rule over them, then where do we reach a point where they are not listening to you? Something is wrong with you, sir. And I mean that with all respect. That you need to look into yourself. Imagine you go in front of a mirror and you say, well, not all mirror are up to specs. That doesn't make any sense. If it's a mirror that has the same exact things, the same exact glass reflection, the same size, the same quality, whatsoever you want to put, and you are saying that mirror is not, no, sir. That tells me you don't have, that is a seal that you have no understanding of what you're talking about. All that mirror will do is reflect. And whether it is, let's say in the church, I put it a better way. Because if you say it that way, then it gives the wrong impression and again judges women in an unfair way. Let me say it the correct way. Not all women are packaged the same way. A mirror is a mirror, sir. But you might go to this shop and the mirror is packaged in paper. You might go to other shop and there's sea bread all around it so that it's protected. So you can judge the package of that mirror. But when that mirror reflects, when you take that mirror out the package, you're going to get a reflection, sir. You need to make sure that you are where you should be and stop judging a mirror. A mirror will always be a mirror. Even if you hit her around the house, she'll still be a mirror. She's going to show bruises saying that you are abusing her. That's a mirror. You see? So I just want to put that in its proper context. That when men say that, they're actually being immature. And you can be a mature man. That's the biggest man in the whole world. He can be a bigger man than all other men in the world. And he can still be immature when it comes to relationship. You can be mature in one area of life and immature in another. I've seen people who are lawyers call on mechanics to go and they can't start their vehicle, and when the mechanic reach, it's just a battery pole that needs to be tightened. I've seen people who are doctors, can't start their car, and when the mechanic comes, the person just used to automatic, borrowed somebody's manual vehicle, the person started it and gave it to the person, and the vehicle shut down because they can't drive standard very well, and they didn't know you have to press the clutch to start. And you are talking about a doctor, somebody that is so well trained that they can operate on you, but yet they're immature just in driving. So not because you're a top dog in one area means you're a top dog in every single area that exists. So a mature man doesn't mean that he's mature in relationships. All I'm saying here to women is don't be, in Belize we use the term bamboozled. Don't be fooled.
Yeah.
Don't leave your brain at the door when you enter into a church building. Don't do it. Because you're going to be sorry. And many women can tell you that even those who have not married pastors or leaders can give you stories of their experiences. And I'm not saying that people cannot be healed, cannot be restored, repaired, cannot be renewed. But I'm just saying that you have to be careful. You have to be careful. And I'm taking this risk of stepping on toes to allow you to equip yourself. Don't leave your brain at the door because you find someone with the name church attached somewhere.
I do think it has been a very practical and fruitful discussion, and so I guess you for the next segment we're gonna have to get into the next 6 inches of this thing. As we have maybe about, you said maybe we have about 2 more points, but we wanna take time to chew on those points next time on Marriage Matters. And so we thank you for listening today and look forward to the next segments with you, sir, and to finish off that sandwich. But until then, this has been Marriage Matters, where we want to encourage you that your marriage and relationship matters. Blessings on you until next time.
Take care.